Have you noticed any new notable research like coming out on transcranial photobiomodulation that got you excited about something new that you're using it on?
Um, not particularly at the moment.
Yeah.
Uh, back in March, I did a deep dive again in a lot of the research for my talk, just to kind of prevent, if I could find some newer studies and things that I hadn't come across yet. But a lot of focus has been on, the big topics we talked about, depression, anxiety, and in a big area we're looking at, of course, is neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's,
Yes.
Parkinson's. And I think that's an area where we're going to see probably a lot more work coming, because in general, in medicine, even any kind of integrative medicine, there are not a lot of options for these patients. You know,
Hmm.
there's certainly a variety of supplements. There's a variety of things to make sure that if they're missing something, to help correct that. But you know, we're having dementia happen at a rate that doesn't really match the aging population. A lot of times we'll talk about, say, well, we have more now because we're getting older. Well, the reality is, you know, the death rate at birth has changed dramatically.
Yes.
And when you average in some child who's only 2 days old with somebody who lived to be 85, you have an average. And that has changed dramatically in the last 60 or 70 years. So yes, we have an aging population, but we're not living, massively longer than we say we were in 1900.
Right.
There's still things, we're still dying from a number of diseases, but our biggest thing, getting back to mention earlier, is this neurotoxicity.
Hmm.
And the amount of chemicals that we're exposed to is tremendous.
Yeah.
And our means of detoxifying between person to person are very, very different. And it's not easy to, run some blood test. It says, okay, well, you do it this way, you do it that way, and figure that out. And this is not taught in medical school.
Right.
In your standard situation, if a medical doctor wants to get involved in environmental health, through standard means, they're an occupational doctor. And that's
Yes.
a MAC program after medical school.
Yeah.
And I have a background in environmental occupational health.
Mm.
So I get exposed to toxicity very early on before I became a naturopath.
Mm.
And of course, we were looking at people working in industrial areas and that sort of thing, and working in factories. But it played out, and later on, that hey, this is a big deal for all of us.
Yep.
And I think if we can, it'd be nice to see some more time spent in transcranial photomodulation, looking at this neurotoxicity and detoxifying the brain via lymphatics, or however else we can do that.
Yeah. I would be really interested to see how it impacts children, autism,
Yeah.
ADHD, things that you can connect to some neurotoxicity. Maybe there's not 100%, correlation, of course, but you got to look at the amount of toxins that children are being exposed to from now and the past, and maybe that is
And where their parents came from, right?
Yeah.
Where their parents were exposed to.
Exactly. You pass it down.
Absolutely. The Environmental Working Group did a study several years ago, they called the Human Toxinome Project, and they had an average of 118 chemicals found in umbilical cord blood in babies when they were born.
Yeah.
How are those interplaying? What are those doing for the development of that child?
Exactly. And it's pervasive. It's not just conventional medicine. I've seen dietitians say that, this idea of detox is just a fad, that we all can detox. And it's wild to think like, hey, we've introduced so many chemicals, so many things into our water, into our food, into everything. And we're going to call this a fad, this idea that there's too many toxins and our bodies can't handle it, when we're obviously, you could do blood panels and see how many toxins are within us. So it's kind of strange to kind of push back against this idea of detoxification being a buzzword that people use when we need it more than ever. Everyone needs to detox these days. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everybody should consider at least intermittent fasting at time, where you're eating for a certain time period in a day. I have a lot of patients that have a hard time with me telling them, hey, take the whole day, don't eat. They're like, oh, wow. Like, I'm not sure I can do that. I was like, well, you ever had the flu? You ever been sick and eat for an entire day? They're like, well, that's happened. I said, well, you didn't die. Animals, classic example. Many animals will not eat when they're sick.
Absolutely.
And when you're fighting an infection, you can also enhance your ability of your body to fight infections with autophagy, it's called. And so you can enhance your immune system function, which is another thing that a lot of people have a hard time believe, that you can enhance your immune system function.
Yes.
by taking, say, supplements or doing a certain therapy of some kind, or even IV therapies. These are real things that can happen.
Yeah.